today, doing something a little crafty. So I am going to make myself some tombstone decorations to go along with the pumpkins that I have for our fireplace. And I'm right now just using a remnant of one of those cheap foam poster boards. You can get these for like $1 at the dollar store. You could spend more on it if you want to, but up to you. So I'm just gonna cut this out real quick so that I can duplicate it, because I'm gonna make myself two. I basically just picked a design. Let me flip this around, because you know what, in the past I have seriously cut myself. And you learn your lesson by going the direction you should. That way you don't cut yourself badly. I think I'm going to angle this out a little bit more. Okay, just like that. Just like that. Looks like I need to replace my blade. Yeah. I don't know if I have replacements for this particular one, so I'm gonna go with it. Hope for the best. I'm just gonna hack this just so that I can get this out of the way and make it a little easier to work with. And try not to hit my battery pack over here too many times, because, you know, I don't want it to fall off the table. My art brain sees something, but, you know, like half of the Queen of Hearts spades the cards we're walking around with in Alice in Wonderland. Figure probably better to work with my X-Acto on these little precision areas. That way I can get better cuts, because this and this aren't gonna match precisely, and I don't really care if they do or not, to be honest, because it's a Halloween decoration, so it's supposed to look all wonky and crooked, right? Nope, that's not gonna cut it. Pun intended. And none of this right here is going to matter because it's going to get special treatment with some Mod Podge, and then some paint, maybe some glued on moss created. So now I will take this piece, nope, where is my pencil? There you are. Boom. Put that one over there. Ah, it's because I'm missing the cup that they go into. Ha ha ha. User error. Whoops. Ooh. Getting off track. Yeah, that's close enough for grammar work. Too much. Those bros. Those tombs. So, I have collected some foam from some recent deliveries we've got, and we'll be adding that to build these up. So I'll start showing the process of building up the texture with the Mod Podge as I go along, because I have to wait for that to dry before I start working on the coloring, and I'll take you along for that journey. So, step 2 in my process is Mod Podge. You can make homemade. It's 1 cup of glue to 1/3 cup of water. Don't mess with that formula too much because it weakens the viscosity of the glue and doesn't work as much. Or you could play around with it, you know, hey, that's what artists do. And I'm literally just using tissues to create my texture. So I always have like a dump cloth. I got this one, I think, at Home Depot or Lowe's when we were painting our house 8 million years ago when we lived in Texas. And I just now use it for that and any other projects. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a little messy. Actually, what I'm going to do for myself is take these rings off because I don't want them messy either. As a technicality, I could be lazy and I got so much heat. My fingers are swollen. Sometimes I will use rubber gloves for this, but I really don't like to waste it on stuff like this. I prefer to use those when I'm working with contact cement. So I'm completely making a mess out of the tissue, basically. Not too much, because I don't want it to be all balled up. I want to be able to flatten it back out. So I can get the look I'm going for without having a line from the tissue, a massive line from the tissue. This is very similar to paper mache for anybody that's done it. I like it because you get to play around with and get messy. Part of art. Fun. And you can thin the glue out. If you want to make it a little more watery, you can buy Mod Podge. You can buy the thinned out stuff. They actually make a watered down sprayable. I use that when I create my dioramas. I use it as a spray over once everything is set so that it gets a little layer of glue, just to make sure that everything stays in place. But to me, love this right here. I loved getting dirty as a kid. Playing in the dirt, playing with the bugs, the frogs, snakes. I mean, not so much anymore as an adult, obviously. But as a kid, loved it. Move that a little out of the way, that way I can. And you don't want to play around with it too much because otherwise it starts to dry out, and then you're making a mess, as Skywalker would say. Of course, I'm purposefully making a mess at the moment. This is also the same process I use when I'm creating rocks for dioramas. I will ball up a tissue to the size I want it and just leave it forever and a day to dry. And then when it's dry, I paint it. Grays, browns, whatever color scheme I'm going for. Just enough glue left. Okay. I do have some areas. I just want to make sure I'm completely happy with it. This is starting to dry out already, so I'm not going to mess too much with that. But I did want to make sure that this got done. Alrighty then. Now we'll work on the partner stone, and we'll let it set up and dry up and move on to color.
After the pool noodles had set for 24 hours, I began cutting in the impressions where the tea lights would set once they're complete. If I had had a hot melting device, I sure would have been using that. But alas, I do not. So I had to improvise and did what I could with what I had. I made my way through this foam little by little. As you can see, I had 6. I was trying to do a symmetrical scene. My intent was to have 2 tombstones, so I wanted each to have the same amount, same look with the candles. My fingers definitely felt a little tender after this session. Holding those scissors was a chore. The foam's not difficult to work through, but anyone who uses scissors a lot knows that just the act of cutting and cutting and cutting, that repetitive stress on those areas, just it causes a little tenderness. Slowly making my way through all of this. Eventually, I get through it. Painstakingly, I get through it. And in the end, voila. So I'm flying through, painting the candles black, getting through all of that. Not a difficult task. Sometimes I wear gloves, sometimes I don't. When I don't want to take off my jewelry, usually I will wear the gloves. I'm just using regular acrylic paint. I'm using the Blick brand. Dry brushing on gray for the texture on the tombstones. Turned out good. At this point, I realized I had made no reliefs in the tombstones whatsoever. So this part was actually quite difficult, getting the reliefs cut into what I had already done so that it would look the way I wanted it to look in the end. In the future, I may decide to create the tombstones out of foam and dig the pattern into it. Upcoming life changes made it so that I had to reduce from 2 to 1 tombstone, so I just used some shipping foam, glued the 2 pieces together, made a little sandwich. I started working on the base, filled it with sand so that it would be weighted down. That way, when the tombstone was set in it, it wouldn't fall over. I just used a piece of thick cardboard from the back of a pad of paper for the backing on that. Painted the sides. Base paint was always black, and then I went back in with the darker gray and dry brushed with the lighter gray to match everything else I had already done. This side of this was very, very porous, so it took me a hot minute to finish all of it. Used quite a bit of the paint. This is the base. The toothpicks are only holding the foam in place while the glue dries. Those wooden skewers in the bottom of the tombstone are what poke down into the base to hold it upright. This was a pretty fun project. This part, I just used a plastic squeezer to eyedrop some brown across the front and rear and base of the tombstone to make it look as if it was a little dirty. Just some watered down brown paint. I was pretty happy with it in the end. And this is tree powder model greenery. It is sold by Rich Boxer on Amazon. $12.99, kind of pricey. This is where I just started having fun, turning on all the little tea lights to show everyone what it looks like once all of them were lit up and in place. Unfortunately, I did not video the process of melting, the melting drips. The little accessory on the front of the tombstone was made out of foam clay, like the EVA type. It was pretty fun to do that. Looks a little wonky, but it worked. Then I began painting all of the glue drips, candle, wax, drippy bits to match the rest of the coloring on the candles. My husband was like, "It doesn't look that bad." I'm like, "Ain't no candle on this planet drip out translucent wax if it's black. I'm sorry. No, we're painting it." So I painted all of the wax buildup at the bottom as well. And the finished product. Don't worry about the reflection of me in my pajamas. Just finished product.